Good morning, good morning. Good morning, community. How are you? Good afternoon to the East Coast. How are you? I am Jenenne Macklin, transformational speaker, wealth guide, and catalyst. And outside of supporting this process we're going through, I really am excited and I'm on a mission to empower women to change their relationship with money. To have greater financial freedom by having greater financial confidence in the decisions and the choices that you make. I'm on a mission to really empower, a million women by 2023 to really change the relationship they have with money. And I know you're like, well, why are you going to talk about money now? Well, you know what? Yes, there's a health crisis going on. This all started last December probably. And now that has morphed into a heart crisis, because our hearts are being impacted by a scab. It's like a scab. Racism is like a scab. You kind of heal it a little bit, but you still have it. You know it's there, and then it gets ripped off when we start these conversations. So while we're in the midst of a health crisis and we're in the midst of a heart crisis, now I want to say we've taken that heart crisis a little bit deeper. Because when we start talking about race, we're talking about our hearts. When we start talking about how we can support each other, see each other, recognize the value of each other, we're talking about our hearts. But in the midst of all that, there's still money issues. People have financial issues that they're trying to solve, solutions they're looking for their mortgages, for their rent, being able to keep their places where you're living with your rent, your condos, your real estate, because that's connected to jobs. So it's all part of the same conversation. We can't just only have a health conversation and then only have a heart conversation as relates to race. We also have to have a money conversation. How do you take care of yourself, given that this present situation will easily last until November, December? I mean, we're so close to the end of the year almost. And it has occupied us this whole entire year thus far. So where are you in relationship to money? Were you prepared for this financial crisis? Were you saving as you had said you were going to do in the event of a crisis? Push that one. 27, 26. Were you building up your emergency fund as you had initially said you would do? So that when this hit, you had resources. Did you think ahead? Because that's what this will be about, is if you thought ahead. If you actually really believed in the fact that there will be something that's going to come up. And so having money in the bank, having a savings account, an emergency fund is really critical. So anyway, that's what I really am about on the planet. Later on this month, next month, I'll be doing a money taboo conversation with women to say, let's talk about money so that we can make the choices we want to make. But more importantly, you can reach your financial goals, whatever those goals are. So we'll be doing that. In the meantime, what overshadows so much of our days and lives is the transformational shift that's happening on the planet around race relations. That's probably taking up so much of our time. Yesterday was the service for George Floyd. I don't think I've ever seen a time where there have been so many services at so many different locations for a person. Because there have been services yesterday and the day before in different states. So it's really kind of monumental to me what's actually happening in response to the George Floyd murder. It's just interesting. I was looking at TV before I left this morning. Yeah, I actually turned on the TV. And, hey, pretty butterfly. It was an NFL football player, NFL. And, Matthew McConaughey. I love Matthew McConaughey. And they were having an open conversation about race. And it's called The Uncomfortable Conversation. And I believe it's become time for all of us to start having those uncomfortable conversations. There's some laws and things that they're submitting and putting into action around accountability, because that's the biggest thing with the police department is accountability. I don't think we all want to defund the police. We want some accountability for their behavior and their action and some consequences. But more importantly, that's the police. On a day-to-day basis, we see each other. On a day-to-day basis, we're walking around each other. A lot of people work for the state, the county, the federal government. Those jobs aren't held by all black people. Every nationality works in those different departments. So the conversations, the uncomfortable conversations, are to better those interactions. Those interactions you have every day with people who get on your nerves at work, people you see all the time. So it becomes imperative that we start having those conversations. And since the statistics say that we have more white friends than they have black friends, it won't be easy for us to find ourselves in those conversations with our friends. And so before we dive into them, one of the first things I want to remind us to do is look within ourselves first. Whoever you're going to be talking to, whatever you're going to be saying, this is about trying to understand the uncomfortable conversation. And the biggest piece is that white America doesn't see it, because white America doesn't live it, isn't aware of it, doesn't know it. So it's hard to see what's being discussed and talked about. So it's hard to see it. So that's where our examples, that's where our input gives them some context to be able to say, this isn't okay, that isn't okay. This is what this meant when you said that, or this is what I meant when I said that. Or just the simple act of hearing somebody's story. Just ask someone, where are you from? You know, where did you live before you got to the United States? And what was that like? You know, just to get to know someone and their story, at least then impacts our heart. So this uncomfortable conversation really is another impact on our heart. And it will be tough because we live protected. We live on alert. We live aware. We live assessing situations throughout the day. So when we start to have these conversations, oftentimes what I find is there's an emotionality that comes up with it. That, you know, on the one hand, you want to talk to your friends because they've been your friends and they're white, and that doesn't make a difference because they're your friends. But we also know that at the same time, when we bring it up, it brings up a lot of emotions for us. It brings up a lot of frustration. It brings up that sense of, God, we've been doing this for so long. How long does it take just to be considerate? How long does it take just to be considerate of another human being? To get to know them and their value rather than judging them from the outside of what America has said about you. And so it can be disheartening and painful, because so much of what we're trying to convey to others is what they've read in history books and what they've heard on the news that's been changed, that you've got to break through all of that. But in reality, we really don't. We just want to talk to the people who want to listen to us. We want to talk to the people who say, tell me more. I want to hear you. I want to listen to what you have to say. I want to understand. Everybody else, they'll get it when they choose to get it. So if you haven't had it, just know that it very well may be time to have the uncomfortable conversation. But start within first. Start with your own sense of disappointment about America, or maybe even your own disappointment with the way your experiences have been at work or with supervisors or write-ups and things like that. Start with you. What's inside of you here? What's already happened to you over the years that you've pushed down, that you didn't talk to anyone about, where your feelings may have been hurt, you may have been disregarded, or felt that you weren't recognized for the 100% human being you are. Start in here first. Assuage our pain, our disappointments, our frustrations first, so that when we're coming to talk to whoever it is, we can come clean. We don't have to come with any attachments to any outcomes. We show up, we share what we share, they take it or they leave it, and we keep on stepping. Because it's not our job to educate everyone. We would love for them to be interested enough to know what it's like, What is it that you actually go through? Because they can't see it. They have no clue. I'm sorry, white people, you just have no clue. You're living in your nice little suburban world. They put everything out there for you, and there's a few black people sprinkled in there that keeps you aware but doesn't make you uncomfortable. So it's up to you to ask the questions and say, what can I know more? How can I do something different? How could my interactions with you be different? And as we start on the inside of our hearts, white America, I ask you to start on the inside of yours. This whole thing about racism is like the molecules in our being. It's so ingrained. It's so deeply ingrained that you have to be willing to look at you and ask yourself the questions. What is it that you do or do not know? What is it of what you know that's accurate or true? You don't know. How many black friends do you have, white America? And how come you don't have more? You work with black, if you work in the county, state, or federal government, you're working with black folks. Because I worked for the county. I know, I'm not just talking to be talking. I worked for the county when I first came out of school. I can't remember if I had my master's or not, or if I just was a social worker with my bachelor's. And I worked for the county Department of Mental Health for 5 years. So you're there. We see each other. It's time now to actually look in each other's eyes and be willing to have that conversation. And no one can make anybody do that, which is why this continues. A friend of mine sent me a page and I shared it. And it shows, I want to say 100 years ago. I can't even fathom that. 100 years ago, black folks walking down the center of New York in a silent protest. Silent protest. It's on my personal page, Jenenne Macklin. Silent protest. So we've been doing this for a while. We've been saying this for a while. We've been trying to talk about this for a while. And it seems to be the one thing that white America will not let go of. And it's interesting. But it won't stop us. It won't deter us. We've been through more. Hopefully we can go through less going forward. And we will be fine. Some people will leave the planet because it's their time to leave the planet, time to be with the ancestors so they can support us from the other side. Know that no one is leaving here accidentally or not with on purpose. God doesn't play with us. When it's time to go, we come here. When it's time to leave and return, we return. And white, black, green, purple has nothing to do with that part of it. Thank goodness. So as you go forward, start here with you. Start with you first. As you're listening to someone, listen. Do not try and figure out what you're going to say in response. Do not make points and say, okay, I'm going to tell them this when I finish, or I'm going to tell them that when I finish. None of that. Listen. People just want to be heard. Just listen. And that goes both ways. If they ask you something or someone asks you something and they're giving you their answer, then listen to them. Don't be so quick to respond and say what you have to say. Listen to hear what they're saying. Are they an ally? What is it that they're saying? Where do they need some corrections or where do they need some support and clarity? It's a health crisis, it's a heart crisis, and it's a financial crisis. Nobody wants to say much about it, but it's a financial crisis. So that's why I will be doing a women's event called The Money Taboo. Ladies, it's time for us to be financially confident, savvy, smart women with our money. And then we're going to look at creating your wealth plan. And I'm sure for some of you, you're like, yay, you understand the importance of that. You understand the necessity of having that. Others of you are like, well, I need a wealth plan. I don't even have any money. Dear, your wealth is not based on money. Your wealth is based on value. Take good care. Have a great day. Bye for now.